They both went on the trip and had fun together. Olumide was the most grateful because it was the best time he had had since they got married. In the middle of the night, Olumide saw a contraceptive inside the toilet sink. In the morning, he confronted Oluchi about it. Oluchi, what is this doing in the toilet? Olumide asked, holding off the contraceptive. Oluchi looked up, surprised. Oh, that, she said, hesitating. I have been using them. I wasn't sure how to tell you. I know you want to start a family, but I'm not ready yet. Olumide took a deep breath. What is wrong with you? Can't you share that with me? I have told you several times, Oluchi, about making babies, and you agreed and said it's fine by you. Because of our busy schedules, we intentionally met during your ovulation time, just so we could have a baby. Here I am putting in all the work to achieve that, while you were preventing it with contraceptive. Why, Oluchi, why? At this point, Olumide was broken, unable to understand the reason behind her actions. 2 years. 2 years, he muttered under his breath. Oluchi did not say a word, and she didn't even look remorseful because she didn't even regret her actions. When Olumide went out, she said to herself, this is the reason why I didn't tell you. You wouldn't understand and you would feel bad. So I will be pregnant and automatically turn into a housewife because I gave birth. Eventually, he also asked me to leave my work now and take care of the children. I also love children, but it's too early now for my career, not to mention the late game. Not now. At least 5 years or thereabouts by then. I would have become an important staff member who can't be replaced in my company. And then we'll start talking about childbirth. Like when you want to go, you still come back and meet me here, she said. When Olumide returned, all he said was, pack your bags, we are going back home now. So soon? We still have 1 more week to spend here, and before Oluchi could complete her sentence, Olumide cut her off. I said, pack your things. Please, this is the last time I'll tell you. Oluchi quickly started packing. When they got back home, Olumide didn't say a word to her. The next day, he went to work, which wasn't the plan. They still had 1 more week to spend together, but because of the tension between them, Olumide decided it was best for him to go to work to clear his head and deal with the anger he felt towards Oluchi's actions. He still loved his wife, but didn't know what to do. At work, Olumide couldn't concentrate. His colleagues noticed his unusual quietness, but he brushed off their concerns with a forced smile. He spent the day buried in paperwork, hoping it would distract him. However, his mind kept wandering back to the night before and Oluchi's revelation. Meanwhile, at home, Oluchi sat in their living room, staring at their walls. She knew she had hurt Olumide deeply and regretted not being honest with him. She wanted to fix things, but wasn't sure how to start the conversation. Olumide, still confused about what to do, decided to meet his mother and seek advice. Then he went to his mother's house and told her everything that had happened. You know, son, I can't say for sure the true reason why she did that, but I believe something serious is bothering her. She is homely, loving and kind, so there must be more to this than we can see. The best thing to do is to talk to her calmly. I know you are not short-tempered, so you can handle it, said Miss Adiola. Olumide listened attentively to his mother. After eating, he went home and called his wife to discuss everything that had happened as the result. They talked openly, made up, and all seemed well between them. A few months later, Oluchi found out she was 5 months pregnant, without even realizing it earlier. One evening, Miss Adiola arrived unexpectedly. Hello, my children, she called her cheerfully as she entered their room. Mom, what a surprise, Olumide said, embracing her. Good evening, Mommy, Oluchi greeted, smiling warmly. Oluchi, are you expecting? Oluchi looked at her with wide eyes. No, now, Mommy, why would you say that? I'm not expecting. If I was expecting, I would have told you first thing. No, Oluchi, you're looking different. After observing her for a while, and touching some delicate places of her body, she started dancing and singing. Ose Baba, Ose Baba, Ose Baba, Ose Baba. Oluchi and Olumide looked at each other, confused, and watched as she continued. At the time they joined heartily in dancing. Olúwa dúpẹ́ o, we thank the Lord. Ọpẹ́ ni fún Ọlọ́run, thanks be to God. She was thanking God, thanking God in her heart. Ẹ ṣeun ọmọ mi, ẹ ṣeun ọmọ mi. Thank you, my child. Thank you, my child. We were still confused. Am I going to be a grandmother? Me. Hey, thank you, Jesus. So how have you been? How come no one told me? Or did you plan to surprise me? Olumide and Oluchi looked at each other in unison and said, pregnant? Oluchi touched her tummy in disbelief. Olumide touched her belly too. What do you both mean by pregnant? Of course you're pregnant now. Don't tell me you didn't know. Oluchi, sitting with her mother-in-law, was deep in thought. How can I be pregnant when I've been taking my pills judiciously? She thought in her head. Suddenly she exclaimed, Ewo! Startled by Oluchi's scream, Miss Adiola, who was on the phone with her husband, came to her. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, I'm fine, Oluchi reassured her and ran up to her room. Contemplating her head, Chineke, no, Abamegu no one chance. Oh my God, I have entered one chance. Oluchi remembered missing her pill one night before being with her husband. A few days later, she felt nauseous, but convinced herself she wasn't pregnant. After bleeding for 2 days, she continued her regular life, attributing her occasional exhaustion to stress. The next day, they went to the hospital and registered fertility care. 9 months later, Oluchi gave birth to a very beautiful girl, baby Aduke. That was what they named her. Aduke was a very beautiful girl, adored by everyone around her. She wasn't mischievous or troublesome. She simply enjoyed the simple pleasures of eating, playing, and sleeping. 3 months after giving birth, Oluchi became increasingly obsessed with getting back into shape. Her sudden drive to engage in strenuous exercise worried Olumide. He tried to talk her out of it several times, urging her to take it easy and focus more on their baby, but Oluchi was determined. Each time she brushed him off, saying she wanted to shed the pregnancy weight, though she had only a little to lose. Within a month, Oluchi's hard work was evident. She looked even more radiant than before, her body toned and fresh. She was ready to return to work, and despite Olumide's concern, she was insistent. He argued that she should spend more time bonding with Aduke, but Oluchi was resolute, not even allowing him the space to explain his reasons. During the first 3 months after Aduke's birth, Miss Adiola stayed with the couple, helping with the baby and supporting Oluchi, especially since Oluchi's mother had to attend to an emergency back home. Miss Adiola carefully avoided meddling in the couple's argument, but offered advice when she felt it was necessary. By the 4th month, Oluchi has resumed work, and her mother returned to help her with Aduke. However, Olumide noticed a troubling change in Oluchi. Her dedication to work overshadowed everything else, including her responsibilities as a mother and wife. No matter how often he tried to talk to her, sometimes gently, other times more sternly, Oluchi wouldn't listen. Her entire focus was on her job. Night after night, when Aduke cried, Oluchi would pass her to her mother to feed her formula. Sometimes her mother would refuse, gently insisting Oluchi breastfed her daughter herself. Oluchi would comply, but even that, she would be distracted, balancing her laptop on one side while holding Aduke on the other. Whether Aduke was full or not, Oluchi paid little attention, quickly passing her back to her mother, Olumide, who would finish feeding her with formula. This pattern continued for months, And when Aduke was 6 months old, Oluchi's mother finally returned to Owerri. The next day, Oluchi and Olumide decided to have Aduke stay with her grandparents, Mr. and Miss Adiola. Olumide left for work first, leaving Oluchi to finish packing the baby's things. But that morning, Oluchi was running late. She hurriedly gathered everything she needed, including Aduke's clothes and food, and rushed off to work. Apologizing for her tardiness, she jumped into her presentation, then quickly moved on to other tasks in her office. Later that day, Olumide was surprised to see his mother walked into his office. Confusion spread across his face as he asked, "Mom, what are you doing here?" Sadiola, looking concerned, replied, "I've been calling you and Oluchi, but neither of you answered. I'm here to find out why you didn't bring Aduke to the house like we planned." Olumide stared at his mother, his mind racing. "What do you mean? The baby is supposed to be with you now," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Miss Adiola repeated, more urgently this time, "Aduke hasn't been brought to the house all today. That's why I'm here, to find out what's going on." A heavy silence fell between them as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Fear gripped Olumide's heart. He called Oluchi repeatedly, but she didn't answer. Panic setting in, he grabbed his keys and without a word drove to Oluchi's office with his mom beside him, both of them dreading what they might discover. Olumide burst into Oluchi's office, his heart pounding in his chest. His voice was a mix of fear and desperation as he asked, "Where is Aduke?" Oluchi, absorbed in her paperwork and confident in her morning routine, replied calmly, "I left her at Mom's." Before Olumide could respond, Miss Adiola entered the office, struggling to catch her breath. No, she's not with me," she said, her voice strained from the exertion. "You didn't bring her to the house." Oluchi's confident expression quickly faded as she started mentally replaying her morning. "I took my bath, bathed the baby too, and we got dressed. Then I put all our things in the car and..." Her eyes widened in horror as the realization hit her. Oh my God, her voice trembling. Without another word, Oluchi snatched her keys from the desk and dashed out of the office. Her hands shaking, her mind was a whirlwind of fear and self-blame as she sped down the road. Behind her, Olumide and his mother followed in Olumide's car, the tension thick in the air. When Oluchi reached the house, she practically leaped off the car, her heart hammering in her chest. She fumbled with the keys, finally flinging the door open. Her eyes immediately locked on Aduke, still strapped in her baby carrier, looking pale and not responding. Oluchi rushed to the hospital. Without wasting another seconds, Oluchi placed Aduke in the car and drove to the hospital as fast as she could. Tears blurred her vision, but she blinked them away, focused solely on getting her baby the help she needed. Olumide, who had been trailing her, parked the car haphazardly and ran into the hospital, his heart in his throat. He found Oluchi in the reception area, her lips moving silently in prayers. His voice was thick with anger and fear as he demanded, "Where is my baby?" Oluchi, unable to speak, simply pointed towards the intensive care unit. Her guilt weighed heavily on her. Her shoulders slumped as she watched Olumide rush past her towards the ICU. Olumide reached the doors of the ICU but was stopped by a nurse. Frustration and helplessness welled up inside him as he watched through the glass, unable to do anything but wait. Behind him, Miss Adiola, still catching her breath from all the chaos, sat down heavily in a chair. She didn't say a word. Her thoughts a flurry of prayers for her granddaughter's safety. She was worn out from the frantic running and driving, but all that mattered to her now was that Aduke would be okay. Oluchi sat quietly in the waiting area, her heart aching with guilt and fear. Every passing second felt like an eternity. She glanced at Olumide, who was pacing back and forth, his face a mask of worry. She knew he was angry, and she couldn't blame him. The weight of her mistake hung heavily in the air between them. As they waited, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the clock and the faint hum of hospital machinery. Each tick seemed to echo the sheer fear and anxiety in their hearts, a reminder of what was at stake. The doctor came out and they all rushed towards him, voices overlapping as they bombarded him with questions. How is she? Is she okay? What's happening? Calm down, the doctor said, trying to bring some order to the chaos. She's fine. The relief in the room was almost tangible as they all sighed, their eyes reflecting the hope they had clung to. But then the doctor added, but the word hit them like a slender hammer, and the fear that had just left them returned, stronger than before. Oluchi felt her knees go weak as dread seeped back into her heart. The doctor continued, she's not awake yet. Her body is very weak, and we are still uncertain about the exact problem. We believe that some of her tissues and organs, which should be fully developed by now, are not responding as they should. Immediately he said that Olumide looked at Oluchi. She will need to stay in the hospital, the doctor continued, so we can monitor her closely and identify any underlying issues to help her recover. Miss Adiola placed her hands on her head, her mind racing with a whirlwind of thoughts. Should she scream? Cry? What could she do to help? Olumide, on the other hand, felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under him. He closed his eyes tightly, fervently praying for God's mercy, pleading for his baby girl to be healed. Oluchi stood there, her heart heavy with regret, unable to fully comprehend the weight of her actions. Her mind was a storm of emotions, guilt, fear, sorrow, all swirling together, leaving her numb and paralyzed, unsure of what to do or feel. An hour later, the doctor came back, and the family crowded around him, their faces etched with worry. Baby Aduke has a kidney infection, the doctor explained. She is also underfed, likely due to unsterilized bottles. The family's anxiety surged, but the doctor reassured them, be on it. By the grace of God, she will be fine. Relieved mixed with lingering fear as the doctor continued to stress the importance of sterilizing bottles and plates. Make sure Oluchi breastfeeds Aduke for at least a year to aid her recovery, he instructed. Olumide remained silent throughout this discussion, his face a mask of controlled anguish. Oluchi, overwhelmed by her emotions, cried silently, her heart aching as they prepared to take Aduke home. When they finally arrived home, Olumide took Aduke from Oluchi and directed her to pack all her things. His voice was cold, lacking the warmth that had once defined him. Go inside, pack your clothes and leave. Oluchi fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Please, Olumide, she begged, her voice choked with sorrow. Miss Adiola, who had been a silent observer, stepped in, her tone filled with desperation. Olumide, is this how we solve things? I know what she did was wrong, but right now we need to focus on Aduke. We can sort out the rest later. Olumide's anger fled. No, Mom. You knew everything she did. Everyone advised her, but she refused to listen. I can't bear to see her. I can't even stay in the same house with her. Oluchi continued to kneel, sobbing and pleading. Miss Adiola took Aduke from Olumide and sat him down. My son, I have never deceived you. What Oluchi did was wrong. But all I care about now, and all we should care about now, is Aduke. She needs her mother, especially in her condition. Remember what the doctor said. Without proper care, she might not survive, but God forbid, she said quickly, crossing herself. We all want her to be okay, so please let your decision be for your child's sake. not your own. You are a parent now. Put your child first. With a heavy heart, Miss Adiola stood up, gave Aduke to Oluchi, and told Oluchi to take care of Aduke. I'm leaving now, she said, her voice soft but firm. Olumide, still seated, looked at Oluchi, his eyes full of unresolved pain. Take your things to the guest room and make sure you take care of my child. With that, he turned and left the house, his departure marked by a profound silence. Oluchi breastfed Aduke, gently rocking her until she fell asleep. As soon as the baby was asleep, Oluchi moved all her bags into Aduke's room, where she decided to stay. Though she was physically present with her child, a rift remained between her and Olumide. He often missed his wife at night and would sleep with Aduke in his room whenever he does. But he never spoke a word to Oluchi for months, his silence heavy with unresolved feelings. One day, Olumide visited his parents alone, his heart weighed down by the complexity of his emotions. I love Oluchi, he confessed to his parents, his voice tinged with frustration. But I don't know what to do. I want to make sure this never happens again. And I think the only way I can truly forgive her is if she tells me everything I need to understand. His parents, listening intently, were impressed by Olumide's maturity. Miss Adiola placed a reassuring hand on her son's shoulder. You are handling this with so much maturity, she said warmly. It's important to get to the root of the issue so you both can move forward. Oluchi had quit her job the day Aduke was hospitalized, doing so over the phone with a heavy heart. Mr. and Mrs. Adiola invited Oluchi and Olumide to their house on Sunday. When they gathered, Miss Adiola addressed Oluchi with genuine concern. Please, I want you to tell us if anything has been bothering you, she said softly, her tone inviting trust. Oluchi sighed deeply, her eyes reflecting her inner turmoil. Thank you for everything you've done for us, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I really appreciate your support. I want to share something with you all. She took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears as she recounted her past. Growing up, my father never let my mother work. Even though she was intelligent and had good job offers, he insisted she stay at home to take care of us. I've seen my mom cry so many times, and when I asked her why she was crying, she would try to hide her tears, saying I wouldn't understand. Her voice broke slightly as she continued. That's why I promised myself I would never be in my mother's position. I focused on my work, and whenever Olumide and I were together, I used contraceptive because I didn't want to become like my mother. When I found that I was pregnant, I wasn't prepared. I would have considered an abortion, but it was already too late. She wiped away her tears, her voice choked with emotion. I gave birth to baby Aduke, but kept working hard. I didn't slack off at the office, and it was his constant focus, and it was this constant focus on work that led me forgetting Aduke at home. It wasn't because I don't love my family, but because I was terrified of ending up like my mother. Her tears flowed freely as she finished, her face a mixture of sorrow and regret. Miss Adiola placed a confronting hand on her shoulder. Oluchi, we appreciate your honesty, she said. It's clear you've been carrying a heavy burden. Understanding your past helps us see where you are coming from. We hope this opens a path to healing for the both of you. Olumide looked at Oluchi with a mixture of regret and love. His voice, heavy with emotion, reflected his struggle. I'm not your father, Oluchi, he said softly, his eyes filled with pain. The least you could do is give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm not against you working. All I want for us is to trust each other, enough to be open and honest. If only you had told me, I would have made more efforts to help you with the baby or any other thing, but you kept silent and your actions almost cost our daughter her life. Even though you were on contraceptive, she survived and you risked her life through ignorance. You've done so many things, Oluchi, too many to count. But this was the height of it all. Risking our daughter's life was unforgivable. Olumide's voice cracked as tears welled up in his eyes. Overwhelmed by the weight of what had happened, the memories of Oluchi's actions replayed in his mind, each one a painful reminder. Mr. Adiola, seeing the raw emotions in Olumide's eyes, gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm glad you've learned your lessons. Even you too, Oluchi. Please, Olumide, my son, forgive your wife. She's truly sorry." Oluchi, overwhelmed by remorse, fell to her knees in front of Olumide. Her tears streamed down as she pleaded for forgiveness. Olumide, his heart aching, reached out and hugged her tightly. The embrace was filled with unspoken words of forgiveness and a longing to rebuild what had been broken. After the reconciliation, the families shared a heartfelt and joyful time together, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced. A year later, Olumide, recognizing Oluchi's desire to return to work, encouraged her to resume her career. They worked together to ensure their home was peaceful and balanced. Mr. and Mrs. Adiola continued to play an essential role, occasionally babysitting Aduke and cherishing the time spent bonding with their grandchild. Their collective effort brought a renewed sense of harmony to their lives. Thank you, family, for watching to this point. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for growing my channel. And may the good Lord continue to bless you. What are you waiting for, guys? Do well to like, subscribe, and tell me what you think about this video in the comment section.